Hello, YouTube. We are back for the attack of Captain Aero. Now, before we start talking about the next step, I just want to say that I did receive a few comments on my last upload in relation to the proper pronunciation of Captain Aero. It's Captain Aero. And I actually looked it up, and it is Arrow, the spelling of the word. And I appreciate the individuals who thought that they needed to correct my pronunciation. They must be English teachers. I should fire or sue the school that I went to because they didn't teach me to pronounce the title of this comic that well. But no, I'm only kidding. I do appreciate it. But guess what? Jerry the Jitterbug likes to do things his own way. And I like Aero better. Sounds more aerodynamic versus Arrow. Arrow I don't like. So, thank you for letting me know. But we're going to continue with Aero. So what are we doing next? The next thing that we're doing with the book is we are going to create the actual pulp so we can do leaf casting. Now, I've known, or I have done this in the past many times, but I'm thinking I'm going to be a little bit more detailed oriented in doing it for this time, because I want to show the process of how I do this. So this may be a boring process, but it's a necessary process, at least when I do it. So it lightened up a little bit. I could have been more aggressive with the chemicals, the chloramine T compound, but I didn't want to do it because my main goal was to try to make this book functionable and not make it a 100% beautiful book, but more something that could be used and enjoyed by Mike, Night Tiger Comics. So, what we got here is newsprint. I like to use newsprint, and this is the color of the newsprint. So I don't think that that color matches well, but in order to do the alteration of the newsprint, I do one of two things. One is there is at times that I actually will bleach the newsprint, and then I will go about and actually drain the bleach and rinse out the paper as best as possible so we can remove the bleach. Another way of doing it is that I actually add different types of dyes, such as tea, or even go as far as using paint, acrylic paint. And that is another way that I will do it. But I know right from experience, right from the get-go, that I will probably be able to manipulate the color of the newsprint just by introducing bleach into the newsprint and rinsing the bleach out, because I think once I add the bleach into the newsprint, it creates a yellowish white, which is the color of the whites in the Captain Aero. What is it? The green arrow? Let's say Captain Aero's. So no arrow for me. But maybe I'll put a little postscript on the bottom so I don't confuse people. So that's enough pulp, or that's at least enough paper that will create enough pulp. So what I do is I let this soak a little bit, and then after I let it soak, probably for about an hour or so, so it loosens up a little bit, what I'll do is I will add the bleach. And I will show you the whole process So stay tuned. You'll see me in about an hour. Okay, guys, we are back. And this has been soaking for about an hour. We're going to soak it a lot longer before we blend it. But the key thing is that I want to add the bleach. I just want to show you how much bleach I add. It's just regular. Let's close it up. Regular Clorox bleach. And the amount of bleach that I add is, there you go. Is it a lot? It sure is, compared to the amount of water that is in there. But if you can see what is happening with the reaction, it is not bleaching the paper white, but rather it's bleaching the paper tan white, as I like to call it, or light tan. So generally speaking, this is the color of Wiz Comics covers that are cleaned. Once you make this pulp, it matches up very well. But before I actually blend it, I also add white paper. And I do add bright white paper. And I like to use sketch paper, which is not newsprint, but it worked for me in the past. So what I'll do is, we might as well do it now. Let's add some white paper, because I can tell already, based on the Captain Aero, Aero, we're gonna need a little bit white. And last time when I spoke, I said there's two ways how I manipulate the colors of the pulp. I omitted to mention that I also add solid color papers already manufactured. So I'm basically blending the colors of papers that are already dyed or treated from the factory in order to achieve the desired result of the paper pulp. So I'm going to spend a lot of time doing this, guys. I hope you're not snoozing watching it, but for me it's very important, because I really want to match up the actual paper pulp as best as possible to the cover as it stands now. So Captain Aero will have a fighting chance, and we want to try to match it for Mike Night Tiger as best as possible. So stay tuned. I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to rinse this, flush it out repeatedly, and then we're going to let this soak overnight, and then we'll start the blending process. So we'll continue with this upload. I hope you're not too bored. Stay tuned. Okay, guys, we are back. And what we have here is the newsprint, which was soaked in bleach, as well as the sketch white paper. Now, this has been soaking probably for about a good 4 hours. And what I like to do before I blend it, and I know I've done this in the past, but I'm just showing it again for viewers who have not seen what I've done in the past, is I like to take my fingers and I like to rip the paper. I like to shred it as much as possible before I soak it overnight. So this is just breaking up the fibers, breaking up the newsprint, breaking up the sketch paper, and blending it together in the whole process of making the pulp for Captain Aero, aka Captain Aero. So this is an essential step, at least for me, in making the pulp for the leaf casting. And I've always done this to a degree, but I'm fine-tuning my process, Every time I do a leaf casting task, I learn something, I modify it. But this whole process here of ripping the paper and shredding it up with the fingers has been something that I've done from the beginning with my first leaf casting project, I believe. So we'll keep it like this, and we'll stir it up, and we'll let this soak for overnight. And then next segment, as you will see, we will blend it, and then we will start testing the paper pulp compared to the color that is in Captain Aero, or Arrow. So stay tuned. Okay guys, we are back. The paper pulp has been soaking overnight, and it definitely loosened up just the way I wanted. So the next step is we're gonna blend it. And the reason why we're gonna blend it is because we want to make test pieces to compare the color to the Captain Aero book that we are leaf casting. I can put a little bit more water in there. That's plenty. So I just poured it in the regular blender. We're gonna close the blender, and we're gonna give it some pulsation. Usually I use the crushed ice setting, so hold your ears. So that's a nice amount, but let's take a look and see how the pulp breaks up, and hopefully we got the right color. So let's do it a little bit more. And that's good for now. The next step I want to do is I want to take the pulp mixture, and we are going to put it into my squeeze bottle so we can squeeze a little of the pulp onto the Ramée to test the color. That's enough for now. So what I'll do is I will put the pulp to the side. We will close it, do a nice shaking, and then I will increase my stock in paper towels. These are all recycled towels here that I use over and over. They only get about 1 or 2 uses really in reality. This is an old piece of Ramée that I pulled from the garbage. And then all I want to do is I want to make a disc with the pulp, a disc of paper, and we're going to see how it turns out with the color. So that's it. I think that's enough. Let's close it up with the Ramée. And then what I'll do, as you can see, that's pretty much all the water that came out, which is plenty of water. Let's absorb a little bit more water by hand. Remember, we're just doing this not to be perfect, but we're just doing this to test out the color once dried. So what I'll do next is I'll take 2 pieces of my small glass. We'll put a piece of paper towel. We'll rest it on the paper towel. And then I'll put another piece of paper towel on top. Let's put the second piece of glass on top. And then we're gonna let this dry, and I'll change the paper towel frequently. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll take this and I'll put it on top of the oil burner. So let's see when this dries whether it will match up to the base white of the Captain Aero. And then if it does match up, we're gonna go and do some leaf casting. So stay tuned. Okay guys, we're back. And it's time to test out the paper pulp color to make sure that it matches up with the interior of Captain Aero, however you want to say it. Now, I removed the reme about 3 hours ago because the reme is not necessary once it's dried the paper to a degree. So this is the paper pulp. It's rough and it's not indicative of the way it's going to be when I apply it, because I'm going to use the Hollytex, the different paper, conservation paper that I purchased from Talus. So let's check it and let's see how it matches up. Here is the cover, and I can tell already that we may have a match. So this is the cover, the interior portion. Let's take it off of the reme and let's place it down. And now what we're gonna do is we are going to check it out, and we are going to see how it matches. So right here I see it is too yellow. It is too bright. We're gonna need some tan in the mixture. So the way I'm gonna do it is we're gonna start with soaking some tannish papers, and I have various forms of tan that I can use. So stay tuned guys, because I am going to get everything set up so we can do the mixture and we can do it in a nice organized way. So I'm going to shut the camera off and we're going to set it up. Okay guys, we're back. So this is definitely too white. So in the past, what I use, and I like to mix it in, is a tone tan paper, which is an acid-free medium surface sketch pad. Now this is a good color that I add to my paper pulps, and I don't think we're gonna need much to tone down the color of the actual paper pulp that it dried. I want to add a little bit of the pulp of the darker color at a time, so we don't do it all at once, because it's a lot easier to make it darker versus making it lighter. That's just my opinion. So let's get this back under the press. When I'm not working on the book, or the cover, I always keep it underneath my glass press, which is to the side, with my reme paper. So how are we going to do this? We're going to do it very easily. I have my beaker of water, and I'm just going to put a half a sheet I'm going to add to this. So just like the other way of making the pulp is that you rip it up, you put it in the water, and I'm going to let this soak for a good 3 hours or so. After this soaks, what I will do is I will just introduce introduce the soaked brown paper into the blender with the pulp that's already in there. We don't have to make a separate pulp. And then we'll do the process again where I will dry it and I will make my first second test ring to compare it. And then this is the process. So I will do this probably most likely about 4 or 5 times to try to match the color as best as possible. And this will be the last segment of me doing it, unless I get it perfectly right with adding the brown. I don't think so, because it's going to be some fine adjustments. So hold off, and next segment we'll fast forward and I will have the finished paper pulp, and then you'll see how I did when we get there. So stay tuned. We'll see you shortly. Okay, guys, we are back. And last segment, we were tinkering with different types of paper pulp with colors. This was the second paper pulp that I made. And I said that I may have to make more if it didn't match up. So I know this may be a boring upload, but I think it's important if you want to do this type of thing. So what do we have here? We have the Captain Aero cover. Let's take it off of the reme so we can get a good look at it. And this was the first one that I made, the first concoction. Way too light. This is the second one. It matched quite well, but to me, I think that we could do better. So I made a third one, and the third one, excuse me, is right here, and it dried up, and let's see how it looks. This is the third one right here. So guys, I achieved my goal because I believe that that is pretty spot on. I'm very happy with this color, and this is what we're going to use. So by way of example, if I put it behind and we lay it down, that is going to match up quite nicely. You're never going to make it perfect. There's too much variation in the cover once it's washed to make it 100%. But right there, I think we're pretty close. And for me, it's something that I'm satisfied with. And once it's all leaf casted and blended in, it's going to look, in my opinion, quite nice. Let's flip it around and take a look how it matches. So it matches quite well with the exterior cover, but you have to understand that the exterior whites is quite different from the interior whites, because that's just the nature of the beast. It's not constant and consistent. There'll always be some variation. So I hope you enjoyed this upload, and next segment in this book, this baby is going to be on the leaf casting table, and we're going to leaf cast it, and I have some new methods that we're going to use, so it should be fun. So stay tuned, and thanks for stopping by.